What I believe is common sense, I'm learning it's not that common. In my view, the most important levels of government are found closest to home, at the local level, where services that impact our lives happen every day. City government, county government, and particularly our local school boards have enormous influence on the health and prosperity of our community. And one of the most important figures working to help shape the largest school district in the entire state is Diane Albert, USD 259 Board of Education President. Wichita Public Schools is in a pivotal season where today's decisions are being made by 7 board members and the superintendent, and they will undoubtedly have generational impact. Diane and I talk about these decisions, these challenges, and so much more. I hope you enjoy this conversation with my friend, Diane Albert. All right, Diane, welcome. I'm glad that you're here.
Thanks.
This is a busy season for everyone in local government because we're getting ready into budgets and we're having all the discussions, and it's a lot.
Are there slow seasons that I'm missing out on?
I in 2.5 years I've been in office, I haven't found it. So if you find a slow season, let me know. Please let me know.
I'll be on the lookout.
Before we get going, hey, I just wanted to check in. How's life? I know that you had recently lost your father, and a retired Sedgwick County firefighter.
Yeah.
I was putting these things together because I had talked to you and heard from some mutual friends what was going on. And then I saw some posts from Sedgwick County firefighters. So I just want to check in. How's your family doing? How are you doing?
Yeah, it's hard.
Yeah.
My dad was, he was, a true public servant. So retired fire captain. So I grew up in the Sedgwick County fire stations, especially the one out off 143rd, in between 13th and Central. Before proms and homecomings, was often driving out there with my date and whatever friends were with us.
That wasn't intimidating for your date or anything, right? Yeah.
Yeah. But, our lives revolved around the fire department. And so he's been retired for a few years. And losing him has been awful.
Yeah, it's been hard. Yeah.
So,
I appreciate it. I'm sorry that you have to deal with so much in public,
Yeah.
As public servants, you have to deal with so much in the public view and the public angle, and you got to process all these things and still continue to do your job and represent your people. So we had coffee a couple weeks ago and we were able to talk quite a bit about it. And I can see just how your family's trying to process these things. So I've been praying for you because I know it's hard.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
But it was really cool to see these Sedgwick County firefighters talk about your dad. I hope that encouraged you. I hope it was really cool to see. Like, he was like, I didn't know him, but he was a man's man, it sounds like. So I hope that was cool and encouraging. And he was a believer too, right?
Yeah, very much so. So, when his neighbors found out about his passing, so many of them came up and they were like, he just shoveled my driveway.
Isn't that cool?
He just helped install handbars in the shower.
Yeah.
I mean, he was truly a behind the scenes public servant for anybody and everybody.
Yeah.
And so growing up with that influence, he has shaped who I am.
Yeah.
I serve.
You come by it naturally. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, gosh.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah.
Well, bless you. We're praying for your family. You're strong. You're very, very strong. So it was really cool to see the outpouring online for your dad. And the community also lost another hero, another public servant, and Dr. Polite, someone that you guys in USD 259 know very, very well for his influence. Did you get a chance to work with him much?
A lot.
Yeah.
Dr. Polite was one of my favorite people. He always had a huge smile on his face, was such a great encourager. And so when I've gone through hard times in a very public fashion since I've been on the board, he would always just come up beside me and say, hey, you're doing a great job. You're here for the right reasons. Keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah.
And so he not only encouraged me, he encouraged our students and our other staff members.
Yeah.
Our community has lost 2 great men just here within weeks of each other.
Right.
And Dr. Polite it is an honor and privilege to have worked with him.
Yeah. You know what I know about, they called him Bugs in the community, but Dr. Polite, the first experience I had with him was actually through the foster care system and just the advocacy. And I go to a lot of meetings in the foster care system, and a lot of providers and a lot of people that care about this. And he was always present. He was always there. And he was very involved at a juvenile detention facility. And he would come and speak at those graduation ceremonies and just encourage and love. And it was a unique kind of love that he gave. I mean, he was holding people accountable. He was pushing. He was trying to get these kids to aspire to higher standards and paint a vision of hope. But man, he had a way about him just to encourage and love. And it was unique. And you're right. We've lost some very valuable people in this community recently. And Dr. Polite, his legacy, much like your dad's, is going to be felt for generations to come. There are young people that have been influenced by their examples. You being one of them. I can think of a couple of kids off the top of my head that love Dr. Polite like a dad. So it's going to be hard.
Yeah. Once again, the online comments that people are saying about Dr. Polite, it's profound how many lives he has touched and over the generations.
Yeah.
Right. It's not just here in the last few years. He has been a true public servant over decades. And he just made everybody want to be better.
Come on.
Every time he entered the room. Yeah. Every time he entered the room, you just got a smile on your face. You kind of sat up a little taller and you felt better.
Yeah.
And I always joked with him. He always wore the best suits, little pinstripe.
Yes, he did.
So be like, man, you're looking sharp today. And he's like, oh yeah.
Yeah.
So he just had a great way about him. Fantastic individual. And he will be greatly, greatly missed.
Yeah. Well, we've got a lot to live up to in this community and serving the public. Let's talk a little bit about that. How did you get into this space? I know you have a business background. I know a little bit about you just from our friendship and our relationship, but school board, like you're not a teacher. I don't believe you've ever taught, right? And now here you are and you care deeply and you're doing things, you and your colleagues are doing things that are quite unique in a district that has great needs. The largest school district in the state of Kansas. So how did you get to the point where it's like, I'm going to run for the school board?
Yeah, so it doesn't make a lot of sense, right? Because my background's actually construction.
Yeah.
So I'm a general contractor. I've spent my entire adult life in the construction trades. Started out as a home painter and then a residential remodeler. So if it's inside your home, I probably know how to repair it, fix it, remodel it. School was not something that I kind of ever saw myself going back into. I had a great experience. I'm a product of 259, graduated from Southeast, loved it, but then kind of enjoyed it and left and never came back. And so in 2021, I was looking at the political landscape, right? So if you remember back in 2021, we were dealing with mask mandates, vaccine mandates, just kind of the whole COVID nonsense of what was going on. And I was really disappointed and truly disgusted at the level of leadership that was on display during that time. And I'd always watched politics from afar. It was more like a sport for me. So you like baseball. I kind of watched politics from afar on the national level as really a sport. I never really paid much attention to local politics because I was like, oh, how much these people really have control over us, and how naive that thought was of me back then. So through 2020, I learned that local politicians had quite a bit, at least they had the idea that they had quite a bit of control over us, and really didn't care for what was being displayed during that time. And so instead of complaining about it and grinching about it, I figured out a way to get involved. And the school board seat was up for re-election that's in my district. And so I decided to throw my hat in the ring and go out on a limb and try something new. And I really felt that the Lord was calling me to do something different, get out of my comfort zone, and going into education. And that whole world was far out of my comfort zone at the time. But since then, I've really dedicated my life, almost 4 years of my life, to learning about the education system, to understanding it, and then looking for ways to improve it, to make it more efficient, to focus on what we're there to focus on, and have really tried to make the right changes for the right reasons in major ways. Because you're right, we are the largest school district in the state.
Big needs.
But not just that, we're the second largest school district in the 6 surrounding states around us.
I didn't know that. Wow.
So we are a major, major system and organization, and it takes strong, steady leadership to do that.
Sure does. In any organization, it takes strong, steady leadership to either change a trajectory or to continue a trajectory or to paint a vision of hope of where you want to go. And that's what I think so desperately needed at all levels of government, but particularly local government. What I appreciate about the school board is just the level of influence you have into the health of this community, and into the trajectory of this next generation that's coming. You are raising up the next generation of leaders, business leaders, ministry leaders, elected leaders. Like, you guys have a role in preparing the landscape that these kids are learning in. And what I love about the school board, and what I think doesn't get enough credit sometimes, is this is a volunteer. You don't get paid to do this work.
Yeah.
The joke you tell is that your payment is, what is it you told me before?
Business cards and snacks.
There you go. Business cards and snacks. But this is a big lift. I mean, you got 46,000, 47,000 kids in this district. I don't know how many employees, but you're a major employer here.
Third largest employer in the area.
Yeah. And you're leading like a board of directors here at this level of government. And you're doing it because you want to make an impact. You're doing it because you care for this next generation. You're doing it because you care for this community.
Yeah.
Like, this deeply care about this. So how has this whole thing changed you and your perception of education and your perception of 259 and your perception of the value that's needed to be built into this school district to help prepare our future in this community?
Yeah, gosh. I mean, how much time do we have?
Yeah, I know.
I have learned a tremendous amount being on this board and trying to learn how to navigate leadership and build consensus, right? Because just because you're in a position doesn't mean you have influence. And just because you have influence doesn't mean you always have the position.
That's
and so
good.
trying to leadership is about building a consensus, casting a vision, like you said, casting hope for a future, and getting buy-in from other people. And so you have to have buy-in from the superintendent, you have to have buy-in from the staff, you have to have buy-in from the teachers that are actually in these classrooms that you want to see change happening. And so just setting a command doesn't create change.
Yeah.
You really do have to create that vision. And so from the school board, I think it starts out by, what is our main purpose? What are we there to do? And for me, it's really as simple as, we're only there to improve student outcomes. That is the reason a school system exists.
Yeah.
And so we have a very narrow focus.
Yeah.
And it's sometimes it can be hard to stay focused on that narrow focus, because now you have all these needs. And those needs can kind of start creating a distraction on focusing on the main reason why you're there. And I kind of almost get mocked at times for this, because I'm always going back to student outcomes. And so everybody knows, any staff member knows that I work with, any board member knows that I work with, they know I'm going to bring it back to student outcomes. And then how are we measuring that? How are we communicating that to the public?
It's good.
Because we are not where we want to be at right now. But having a conversation about what students know and what students are able to do, setting goals, setting a vision, setting a direction, staying focused on that, making our board meetings focused on that, and then measuring those progress, monitoring for the future. That, to me, that's what the role of the board is to do. So we have to stay focused on that kind of stuff.
And it's easy on the local government level. Listen, when we look at politics on the federal level, even politics on the state level, you understand what's happening there, and you see what political division, and you see what begins to happen on that level, and how in some regards it delivers progress, in other regards it creates some stagnation and actually moving initiatives forward. But when you talk about local government and the local level and the role of politics on the local level, I understand it on the county side, I understand on the city side, but the school board is the one place where politics really doesn't have a whole lot of play. Now, listen, let me nuance this here. Many times politics is an element, it's your worldview, right? I mean, this is a lens in which you see the world, and the role of government and the role of families and the role of, listen, that's certainly, you don't separate yourself when you're making decisions. What I'm talking about is where politics and partisanship gets into, where it stagnates relationships, like my team versus your team. And I got to rally to get the votes on my team versus your team. The school board, when those things happen, progress is delayed. And what I hear you saying, which is very much where I believe from my worldview as a conservative, is let's keep government in its proper bandwidth and its proper scope of services in its proper lane. And what you're saying is, no, the school board is designed to focus on student outcomes and to advocate for the people, and to hold the not just staff, but the superintendent to the check and balance. Am I interpreting that right? How do you explain that when you talk about the role of the school board, staying in its lane, focusing on student outcomes and advocating for those things?
Yeah, so there's kind of two different umbrellas that I look at these through. Okay. And so our main reason, the reason why we exist, is to focus on student outcomes, is to prove student outcomes. And we can get into a whole nother conversation on how we progress monitor that, how we measure that. And those are conversations that are continually happening right now. But then the other umbrella is fiscal responsibility, because we have a very large budget.
You do.
And so our budget's larger than yours. Yes. It's larger than the city's. So what does that mean and what does that do? And that is a very political issue. When you start talking about our budget, that politics gets involved very quickly.
Do you mean you get emails about property taxes and things like that?
Yes, and I'm a fiscal conservative,
You are,
so
yes.
I always want to pay less in taxes, but I'm also tasked with managing and running a large school
and
district.
Organization. Yeah,
right. And so that takes employees, that takes facilities, that takes infrastructure for that. So trying to find the balance in all of that, because 259 has to improve student outcomes, right? I think the taxpayers they're frustrated with the low performance there. And that's a different conversation,
sure,
right? There's a whole nother layer of conversation we can get into there. They want to see performance improved. And I agree with them, because when we talk about poverty, we talk about foster care, we talk about all these other issues. I hope we can all agree that education is the main ticket out of all of those things.
Yes.
That's the main lever that we can solve those problems with. So we have to have a good foundation for education for students. That's a generational change that happens right there. Yeah. But then also, people want to make sure that we're spending money responsibly. We're spending money that's getting to the classrooms. We're spending money to get those outcomes that we need.
That's good, Diane.
So there's multiple parts to that. Like, there's room for improvement for us. I mean, we've cut $27.6 million from the budget last year.
Very hard decisions. Yes.
That does not come easily. We've cut over 53 positions in administration at AMAC. Yeah. So what people are saying is overhead and over bloated. That's a lot of positions.
Yeah.
We're trying to make very fiscally responsible and sound decisions. And so there's also some places that we've heard people want to see more accountability. They want to see more transparency. And so there's things that we're changing in the district.
And those questions, but those questions don't offend you, right? I mean, when you hear those, you're like, yeah, let's get to work. Like, that's what I've always appreciated about you, Diane, is you're not afraid to get in the lion's den. And as you said to me one time, I don't mind poking the lion on the nose. Like, you won't shy away from a hard conversation.
No.
I've watched you walk into tough rooms and have those discussions and say, hey, listen, let's all agree that we want healthier kids, healthier families, and education outcomes that are improving, not declining. I've heard you say it.
Yeah.
And I've also heard you, and let's talk about some of these things that are going well. There are challenges. We'll talk about the challenges shortly.
No shortage of challenges.
Yeah, but I've heard you say, hey, there are some things you're doing and some things that are changing in the district that you're really proud of. I heard you speak once about some of the math adjustments that have been made and some of the outcomes that are changing there. Give us an idea. Like, what are some good things that are happening in 259 that you're saying, hey, listen, we can be proud of this. Like, there are positive things happening.
Yeah. So the ones that I always point to are our future ready centers.
Oh, yeah.
These are standalone buildings, and we partner with WSU Tech to put up educational items that we hear from community business leaders. It's like, hey, we need more students that are ready for manufacturing. We need more students that are ready to go into the healthcare industry. We need more students that are more tech savvy to go into the computer fields that we're seeing pop up. And so we have 2 future ready centers currently right now. One is by North High School over at the old Dillons. That was our first one. That's manufacturing. That, I joke, that was a facility. If it had been around when I was in high school, I would have needed a key because I would have just lived at that building. I'd have been the first one there and the last one to leave.
It's incredible. It really is.
And every time I go in, there's more and more stuff. So I just want to tell your audience that if they've ever said that we need to bring shop class back into the schools, this is like shop class on steroids.
Modernized, it is.
Very modern. And so we've got 3D printers, we've got laser engravers. Students are actually building an airplane in there. So it's a kit airplane that students are actually building. Yeah. And then once they're done with it, we'll sell it.
It's incredible.
Get a new one, and then they'll start on a new airplane.
Yeah.
And so we partner with Textron Aviation with that. Students are doing composite work. They're doing everything that they would be needing to learn to go right into Textron Aviation.
I've heard you speak on this. I've heard Kelly Bielefeld speak on this. I heard Dr. Sherry Utash speak on this. And the first time I heard her speak on it, Kelly Bielefeld had made a comment about the poverty levels in USD 259, and I believe the number he said, and correct me if I'm wrong, that over 80% of kids in 259 live under the federal poverty level.
Yes.
That's a significant number. And in the same presentation, Dr. Utash, and he talked about the Future Ready Centers. And in my mind, I heard, because this is what I was hearing, that they are doing this training while they're in high school, that the day they graduate high school, they're also graduating with certificates and getting degrees so they can walk right into the workforce. I believe that they were using wages and salaries of walking into workforce at $65,000 plus, these kids. And in my mind, I heard, this is how you change generational poverty. Our district attorney, Mark Bennett, told me one time that the greatest opportunity to change a kid with a gun is get a kid a job. He said, that's how you change generational poverty, generational mindsets, stable, good quality work. And this is it. Like in my mind, generational poverty that we see brewing and growing, that trajectory in 259, the greatest ticket to this, of changing that, is these future ready centers. I'm the big believer in this. Advanced manufacturing, you have the healthcare. I know there's some advanced trades coming.
Yes.
That's another conversation. So
hack, that's the next one. That'll be in August.
And this is unique. I talked to Dr. Utash just a few weeks ago, and I said, hey, is this a model you guys took from Dr. Utash is the CEO of WSU Tech, who you guys are partnering with in many of these things. I said, is this a model you saw elsewhere and you've brought here? And she says, no, this is a byproduct, the innovation between 259 and WSU Tech. Like, this is our innovative processes that we've been working on. And I said, we need to tell the world this story. Like, this is an incredible model. Am I right?
It is the best kept secret in the district. I hope every citizen in Wichita learns and understands about these future ready centers, because they really are life-changing for a lot of students, because they are graduating with industry recognized certifications. Textron Aviation has said, hey, we want to hire every one of your students that comes to the manufacturing center. So last year we had a student that was done in December with all of his credits. Textron hired him at $25 an hour. He hadn't even graduated yet. He was walking in May. Yeah. And so here he was making more money than probably anybody else in his family at the time.
Yeah, it's incredible.
So you want to talk about changing a trajectory of family, changing generations through employment. That is one of the ways you do it.
Yeah.
And imagine the change in just self-esteem, confidence for that young man.
Yeah.
He's now probably the highest family earner of any of the living generations. Yeah. And so it truly is life-changing.
Yeah.
To get actual skills, hands-on trades, because no matter what the future holds, technology is going to continue to change the landscape of employment. Working with your hands, AI, technology, it will never take away that. And there is something more satisfying when you work with your hands. At the end of the day, you're like, I built this.
Yeah.
Nobody can take that away from you. And whether you're doing it for an employment, whether you're doing it for a hobby, for a skill, a craft, there is something that's it changes you on the inside that is like, I can do this. And you can point to it, everybody can see it, and there's something very satisfying about it.
Well, I've watched you speak in public about these future ready centers and light up, and your energy, I think, is contagious. I would just think, please keep telling this story, because this is how we change generational poverty. This is how we really change that trajectory. I'm a big believer in it. You mentioned something earlier about the workforce of USD 25. Just how big and broad it is. You're one of I think you said the third largest employer here in our area. When you talk to teachers, what I've also appreciated about you and Hazel and Kathy and the rest of your board is you're very active in your schools. You guys are in your schools. You're listening to teachers. I'm a public school product. My children go to public schools. Now we go to USD 266 for Mays School District, and we love the Mays School District. I'm a Wichita school product. I'm a part of an organization called Love Schools, where we try to give back and we try to help our public schools and our teachers and our administrators with innovative concepts and just support. So
Kelly and I just met with him.
With Brent,
just a couple weeks ago.
That's my boy, Brent. Yeah, I love this organization. I love being a part of it. My point is that we love teachers. They're heroes in our community. I was a byproduct of great teachers. My children have wonderful, beautiful teachers that care deeply about my kids. We can never say enough thank yous to teachers. When you go in and you listen to teachers, like, what are they telling you? Like, what do they need? How do you, in your mind, how do you best support the teachers that are doing the work to love on these kids and to prepare these kids for their future? What do they tell you? What is in your mind?
A lot of things, right? And it depends on what grade level. It depends on a lot of different things, but teachers are having to deal with a lot of the ills that are happening in society. So when we talk about the breakdown of the family, they're having to deal with that. I went to Latchkey a few weeks ago. A friend of mine shows up early at school to do the Latchkey in the mornings, and just kind of shared some of the heartbreaking stories of the students that are dropped off there at 6:30 in the morning.
Yeah. And
then they're there all day for Latchkey and then school, and then they stay after school because mom or dad is working. And so home life is really hard. So there's a lot of societal challenges that are being dealt with in the classroom.
And the behavioral health issues, they're significant. Yeah.
It is. And so there is no shortage of challenges that our teachers are dealing with. And so now they're not just being able to focus on reading, writing, and math, which is what we're there to do. They're having to focus on some of the other needs that are being presented in the classroom. And so there's a lot of challenges there. There's a lot of behavior challenges that are happening. And so we're trying to address that through behavior support services. ComCare is often in our schools to be able to provide mental health supports for students.
We have what's called our MHIT teams, or mental health intervention teams, and we've got a large number of them involved in the 259 school district. And it's good to hear that the byproduct of that has been well received, and there seems to be success, and their interventions are helping. But
a lot of those students that are receiving those interventions, we see improvement in their attendance.
That's beautiful.
Which one of the things that a lot of times we don't think about is when we talk about test scores and achievement, it's really hard to educate students that aren't there. Yeah. And we have a high chronic absentee and tardy problem. And that, when we talk about poverty, that's kind of a basket for a lot of these things that hangs out in. So it's not, I used to think it's like, well, poor people can learn. I grew up very poor.
Sure.
And so it's not about that. It's really kind of an umbrella of, here's a lot of other problems that are often presented by
there's
that
social
poverty
level. There's social determinants that influence outcomes, and if we can just pull a lever and fix poverty, someone really smart would have done that a long time ago. And poverty has a lot of fruit, a lot of different ways in which it impacts in nutrition and sleep health and hygiene, and there's just a lot of different ways. And I'm not saying, please hear me clearly, I'm not saying that those that live in poverty can't have good outcomes. I'm not drawing that conclusion. I'm just saying that there's challenges in the district with a poverty level that is that high with that many families to learning. And what I've noticed about 259 and your teachers and your board and your superintendent and your administration is you understand that, and you're trying to do things to help kids that need more help in regards to the support systems. You're trying to do things to make sure that when they get in the classroom, they can learn. When you get them there, that they can maximize their learning capacity. And I just want to say thank you that you guys acknowledge that there's challenges and you're trying to do the best you can to lift these kids up.
Yeah, what teachers do day in and day out is really remarkable. And we've recognized some teachers that are seeing great growth in their classrooms despite all the challenges that are present.
Yes.
I'm kind of amazed by the things that they can do and the challenges that they face day in and day out. So we really do have a lot of phenomenal staff in 259. So there's no shortage of them.
Let's talk about your superintendent, Kelly Billafield.
Big fan.
I am too. And you mentioned something earlier about you've had to make some tough decisions and some hard decisions that took courage. And it took you received a lot of flack, some of the school closings and things of that sort that were challenging, but you have some budget issues that you're trying to manage a lot of different needs, the needs of the district, but also the needs of the budget without significantly raising property taxes and doing other things. It's hard, right? Local government building budgets, it's hard. It's not easy. But you have a superintendent that believes very much in developing a plan and executing a plan and communicating a plan. He understands the need of policies being directly linked to healthy families and what that looks like. Tell me a little bit about Kelly Bielefeld and what it's like to work with him. Now, you don't work for him. It's the relationship between the board and the superintendent. Most people don't understand. It's a unique relationship. You're there to hold him accountable to do his job. And I like Kelly a lot. So tell me what it's like to work alongside him and what he's doing as a superintendent.
Yeah, Kelly's great. I can't say enough good things about him. When he first got into the job, there was a lot of challenging things. Like you said, we had some budget issues that needed to be addressed right away. So there wasn't kind of this honeymoon period or anything. What I love most about him is he's not afraid to face a challenge head on. And he identifies the challenge and he comes up with creative solutions to address that challenge and solve it. Yeah. And the man's a positive, he is visionary thinker.
The energy, all of it. Yeah.
Yeah. He's, even when he's having a bad day, you would never know because he puts on a smile and it's genuine.
Yeah.
And so he's a great encouraging leader that is not married to this is the way public school does things. Mm-hmm. He's open and creative and casting ideas. I think public education needs to make some different changes to adopt to kind of the marketplace of education that's out there. And so he's not afraid to participate in that. And so for people that don't know, there's a learning lab down at the Union Station, and that is really a marketplace for education. And there's 5 different micro schools that are there, and USD 259 has a classroom.
That's right.
So we're participating in the marketplace of education.
Yeah, most people don't know that. You're doing innovative things, modernized things to engage kids and put them in learning environments that customize what their needs are. 259 is leading in this regard. It's impressive.
We're making some very innovative changes because his thought process, which is along with mine, which is why I'm very supportive of him in that role, is we need to meet families where they're at. And we also need to provide for the needs of those families. So if families want something different, want a model that looks different, something like our Creative Minds classroom, then the public schools should provide that.
Yeah.
That's the whole reason why a marketplace for education exists. That's why micro schools have popped up. It was in response to people wanted something different than what the education system was providing. And so we're just going to participate in that. If families want that and there's desire for that, then why shouldn't the public schools participate in that?
Right.
We're taxpayer funded, and these are taxpayers.
Yeah.
So we should have different models of learning that meet the needs of families that are looking for those options.
I love it. Diane, how's your business experience influenced the way you approach this job? When I hear you talk, when I'm listening to that right there, I mean, I'm hearing innovative solutions. I'm hearing, I've heard you talk in previous settings, fiscal responsibility, financial stewardship. I hear you talk about accountability, and I hear you talk about staying focused on goals and vision. Like, this is you in your business sense bringing, now business and government aren't the same thing. They have different outcomes, but there are principles that are applicable that will lead to reform and lead to better outcomes in local government, including the schools. Has your business experience helped influence some of these approaches?
Absolutely. As a remodeler, I don't get to live in the world of theory, right? I live very much in the practical world of, I can't talk in theory about how your electrical system works in your house.
Right.
It either works or it doesn't work. We've got to fix it. And so there's a start point. There's an idea of how to fix it, and then you fix it. So it's very much results-based oriented. And sometimes in education, I've learned we're more theory-based oriented. And so to me, I want to see results. I want to see measurable outcomes. And so I always go back to, how are we measuring it? What are we actually trying to achieve?
That's good.
And how are we measuring that outcome? And that has not been the case before. So we're really trying to, a lot of the new things that we're trying to do from the board side is create a system of accountability, create a system of how are we measuring things and being accountable to those taxpayers, because I don't want to see taxpayer dollars wasted. Who does?
Right.
So, but how do we measure that? And how do we communicate that to the public?
Yeah.
And there's not a great way that 259 has done that in the past. And so we're really trying to rethink that and display that. So there's a lot of talk about dashboards right now with us.
Oh, yeah.
How do we display this information in a digestible way?
And it's transparent so the public is aware of all that's going on and you're not hiding anything. Like, here it is. Now let's react. Yeah.
So just about everything's going to be laid out on our website before too long. So even right down to our budget. So I hear a lot about audits, and people want the district audited. And it's like the district is audited by a number of different agencies. And so we're going to start publishing when those audits are happening. And those are going to be open to the public. Anybody can attend, and they're not going to be able to participate in that meeting or anything, but they can witness that happening and see the documentation, see what's going on.
Yeah.
And so we're going to publish those on the website. We're going to put those on the calendar.
Good.
So I want the public to come and participate. If you've got ideas on how we can be more efficient, more lean, I want to hear it. Contact me.
Yeah.
My contact information is displayed prominently on the website.
It is. And did you
Come
know
find me.
that that's not commonplace for school board members across the state? Like you've said, nope, here's my number, here's my email address, reach out to me. I'm an advocate for the people. I work for the people.
Yes.
I'm representing the people in this environment with these public schools. Like you've been the one. You've said you can call me anytime, and you've answered. Anytime I've called, I've had questions, you've answered.
Yes. Here's
Here's what I appreciate what's happening in 259. I've talked about it, kind of mentioned it earlier, is 8 years ago, I got involved in the foster care system, and it's something that's kind of gotten into my soul, right? I can't turn this off. Now, county government, what I do on the county commission, we don't have direct involvement in the foster care system. That's more of a state agency, particularly through DCF. But what happens is county government, through ComCare, through the health department, through juvenile corrections, through adult corrections and adult detention, county government has to deal with the byproduct of a failing foster care system. So that's how I justify my involvement today into the foster care system from the public standpoint. But it's gotten into my heart looking at these kids and their outcomes. 1,400 kids in Sedgwick County are in out-of-home placement. About 70% of these kids will have a touch point in the criminal justice system at some point in their life. Less than 50% of these kids are going to graduate high school. And the average placement in Kansas today is about 9 placements. So this is significant. It's a significant challenge. In my view, it's a moral challenge for our community to meet from a collaborative standpoint. I have had numerous meetings with people at 259 and what you guys do in the foster care system, because 1,400 kids in Sedgwick County, the bulk of these kids are in USD 259 schools. Yeah. Talk to me about your guys' heart towards the kids in your school district that are in the foster care system and how you're best supporting these kids.
Yeah, so there's a lot of challenges to that support. So we have this year over 800 students that are in the foster care system within our schools, and most of them are kind of highly concentrated within certain areas of town. But it's heartbreaking because it's elementary, it's middle school, and it's high school. Oftentimes you kind of think it's a little bit older students. Yeah. But these are all ages, and that's heartbreaking. And so we try to, because they do often move placements on a regular basis, we do try to keep them at kind of their home-based school.
Thank you. Because transportation is such a challenge. Yeah.
It is a very big challenge. So we do provide transportation for them. If they fall under the homeless program, then there's a federal aid program called McKinney-Vento.
That's right.
That they have access to. And so, and they can go down, they'll provide anything from hygiene items to clothing items. And so there's actually a lot of support within the school system for those students. But it is a big challenge. Yeah. These students come with a lot of
trauma.
Yeah. They need a lot of mental health supports. Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
Well, just think about it. I try to always, when I'm talking about this situation and these issues, I try to make it very practical for people to understand. Imagine being 8 years old and awoken at 7 o'clock in the morning and saying, hey, you've got to go to a new house. It's time to go to a new house, and just getting transported from a different placement to different placement, not knowing these people. And most of these homes are loving homes, and they're trying to do the best they can. But imagine being this kid, 8 years old, going placement to placement. I had a guy in my office at the county here about a year ago who knew I was active in the foster care system and advocating for reform, and active in the Care for Every Family Network, and really trying to initiate some things. And let me pause and just say I actually am really proud of some of the momentum and the energy around this topic, and I do think there's positive things happening. But he was aware that I was involved here and wanted to meet with. He called me And we just got to chatting, and I said, man, tell me your story. Like, let me hear your story. And he was over a period, he got into the system when he was 5, and he aged out of the system. He had over 100 placements, He ended up in prison. And he actually did a documentary talking about the foster care to prison pipeline and why this is so prevalent. I saw data at one point in time that 60+ % of inmates in our state penitentiaries had a touch point in the foster care system. So there's obvious strong correlation. Well, I asked him, I said, man, like, help me understand that many placements. There are obviously behavioral health issues, behavioral issues. Like, tell me. And he said, I knew my mom was broken, but she was my mom. I just wanted to go home. So I'd get into a new placement and I would act out because I just thought in my mind that they would take me back to my mom. I knew she was a mess. I knew she had problems, but she was my mom. I just wanted to go home. And so I try to make this very real for people to understand that, yeah, there are problems with neglect. There are problems with drug abuse. There's problems with crime and criminal background in families, all of these issues. And there are valid reasons why the state needs to take a step in sometimes and remove a child from the home to protect a child. And that will never change. There will always be those. But how do we reduce the number of kids entering into the system to begin with? We're always so reactive in so many different things, particularly in mental health, substance use, foster care, homelessness. We're very reactive. What if we took resources and put them more preventative to keep kids from ever entering the system to begin with and to focus on healthy families and supporting families? Those are the conversations that are happening right now with 259 leadership, with Kelly Bielefeld sitting at the table because he knows he's got to contend for these 800 kids that are in his school district, that are in his schools. He's got to contend for these kids. So I just want to publicly say that Kelly, your board, and the staff at 259, I want to thank you because I think you are leading in the foster care space. I think you have a very challenging, complex problem and a situation, and you're doing the best you can to lead, and you're at the table trying to shape these outcomes. So I just want to publicly say thank you because these kids need you. They need you in a big way, and I think you're trying to step up to help.
Yeah, thank you. So the tagline for Wichita Public Schools is every student future ready. And I often say that there's no asterisks behind every student. When we say every student, we mean every student. So whether you've got special needs, whether you're in foster care, whether you're a high flyer and a performer that's going to go on to do great and wonderful things that'll be notable someday, we really do mean every student. And so that means we're going to meet your academic needs where you're at and provide the best quality education for you that we can. Yeah. And we're always going to continue to be on a continuous improvement cycle for that. And so, like I said before, we're not where we want to be right now, but we're striving for that. And I'm very confident someday that we will get there soon. Yeah. So
I believe it. I believe with your leadership. I believe that with the vision that you guys are trying to cast, I do believe it. So what's next for 259? I mean, there are challenges. There's building challenges. You guys are doing things in curriculum. You're supporting teachers. You're doing quite a bit in supporting these students. Like what's next? What's on the horizon for 259? I know Future Ready Center's out there, and I'm going to be a loud, big supporter of those. What else? Like, what else needs to happen to get you to where you need to be, to where you can say, hey, these student outcomes are improving in a drastic way?
Yeah. So a few years ago, we implemented different professional development for teachers called letters training. And so right now, there's the Blueprint for Literacy that was active a few years ago with the state legislature.
That's right. Yes.
And so we've already been doing that in 259. We started that, really the largest cohort that we had was in 22-23 school year. And so we're seeing some great outcomes for literacy outcomes with our students. So it's really a model for teachers to have explicit training on how to teach students how to read based on phonics, basically. So if people want to learn about the reading wars that have gone on in the history of the United States of America, there's a great podcast called Sold a Story by Emily Hanford. It's like a 10-part miniseries, and she takes more of an investigative journalistic approach to what the reading wars were like in the country. And I'll just give a brief history on that, because you said what's next for 259, but I think we have to remain focused on student outcomes. And our reading scores aren't where we want to be, but what are we doing to change that? And I think that's an important part of this discussion, because if we're not doing anything different, then how are we going to expect different outcomes?
You can have no reasonable expectation for a different outcome. You're exactly right. Yeah.
So a little background, it was my first year on the board. So it's 2022. Both my sister-in-laws are educators, one here in Wichita, one in Washington State. And one of them sent me this podcast, the Soul to Story podcast. And so I listened to it, and basically you have two sides, a good side and a bad side. And I was like, what? This is egregious. What are we doing in USD 259? Our rating scores aren't where we want them to be. So, I kind of assumed that we were kind of doing the bad side of the reading wars. And so I set up a meeting, an appointment with our elementary curriculum specialist, and just sat down with her. I'm like, tell me what we're doing in 259. And so we were there for almost 2 hours, and she was very gracious with her time with me and just kind of laid out some of the changes that were happening as we spoke right then and there. And so I'm more of a trust but verify person, because at the end of our meeting, she goes, if you really want to understand reading and education better, listen to this podcast. And I was like, well, I've already listened to it twice, which is why I'm here. And so that kind of changed our conversation right there. But I wanted to make sure that 259 was doing the good thing that was in this podcast. And so I've got a dear friend that's a reading expert. And like I said, my background's construction. Right. So I can have a robust conversation about drywall screws and tile setting. Reading instruction is not in that for me. And so I called up my dear friend and said, hey, would you come to a classroom in 259 with our curriculum specialist and just verify what we're doing? I just want to make sure that what she's telling me is accurate, just because our test scores don't line up with what we were doing. And so she came into a classroom, and those two spoke way over my head about all things reading curriculum, how the instruction was being implemented and displayed to the kids. And so we walked out of there, and I was like, well, what'd you think? Like, what are we doing? And she goes, actually, I'm shocked. She goes, you guys are actually doing really good stuff, and your supplemental material is really good. The instruction methods are really, really what needs to be happening.
That's encouraging to hear.
It is encouraging, because our test scores aren't displaying that information yet. But keep in mind, we made these changes in really the 22-23 school year with that professional development. So that's still really new.
Yeah.
But we are seeing significant growth. And I've got a chart. We always display it and update it when we talk about the reading scores. But you look at the curriculum or the outcomes for kindergarten, like I think it was the word segmenting. We had about 53% of students in 21 that were proficient in word segmenting. Wow. And then last year, it was like 73% of the kindergartners were proficient in word segmenting. Yeah. So, and that's our internal data. That's our FastBridge scores. That's not state assessment. Sure. That's what I want to see. That's progress. Encouraging. Yes. Right. We need to see that progress there, because, third grade reading scores they're a huge benchmark. So, because that affects poverty, there's a correlation between the prison population with third grade reading test scores. There's a lot of correlations that are negative if you have a low third grade reading test score.
Anybody curious about that, go to Storytime Village and talk to Dr. Priska Barnes. She'll tell you all about it. She's a dear friend. But you're right. Third grade reading level is a benchmark that determines a lot of different outcomes in the future. So
I just want to get across to people that there are significant changes happening within the district to address real needs and real problems. And so we're not seeing it exactly at the state assessment level, but that's kind of a whole nother discussion where what is the state assessment actually measuring? Sure. When I talk about student outcomes, it's what students know and what they're able to do. And state assessments don't measure that perfectly.
I hear you saying is seeds are being planted. As Damon Young said, the last podcast was roots and fruits, right? You're planting seeds, you're digging roots, and the fruits will come if you stay the course and you're diligent to your course. You have disciplined thought. You have a disciplined plan. You have disciplined people. It's just continuing to just saw on wood, right? It's just saw on wood. You just got to keep at it, keep going. Here's what I appreciate about you is that you, like me, I didn't walk into county government as an expert in public safety, EMS and fire and 911 and the sheriff's office like that. I'm not an expert. Didn't walk into county government an expert in comm care. I'm not a licensed mental health professional or the public health department. Like, this is not what I do. But we've surrounded ourselves with really smart subject matter experts, and why the people hire me and why they hired you to do this job, even though you don't have an education background, is they trust your worldview. They trust your worldview, the lens in which you see the world, the conviction in which you do your work, the conviction that you have to make sure these student outcomes and these families and these kids will have better outcomes. They trust the conviction, and they trust that the lens in which you're seeing these issues and your decision making. I think it's great that we have people, and this is not a knock against educators joining school boards. Please hear me out. I'm not saying that. I think it's great that people from outside different lived experiences are in these types of roles like you're in, because you bring a different skill set. You bring a business skill set, a mindset into this role to where you interpret ideas and interpret things differently. And then you bring the subject matter experts around you to educate you about these things, no pun intended, but to educate you about these things. And then you make decisions based on your worldview. And that's what we need. We need different lived experiences in the room advocating for these kids. We'll finish here, Diane, but I'm going to drop this on you. And there are a lot of people that are asking you to do a lot of things politically because you've impressed a lot of people. In the 45 minutes that we've been talking, I think most people that listen to this podcast genuinely see your authenticism. They see how much you care. They see brilliance, but they see discipline. They see that you've got a trajectory and you have outcomes, and you're going to take a disciplined approach to deliver outcomes for the taxpayer. Naturally, people say, in the circles I'm in, man, Diane needs to run for X office or this office. Like, we need her to keep going. Are you going to run for school board again?
I am going to run for school board again.
Yeah.
I am very committed to seeing this through. I have worked day and night to make sure the framework for the board is focused on student outcomes, that the district knows we're going to be focused on student outcomes. I'm hoping that the taxpayers know that we're going to be focused on student outcomes. And with that, student outcomes are going to change.
So,
and I'm not going to leave before that happens.
yeah.
And so I'm very confident that our student outcomes will start changing. My big dream would be, a national story be done on what happened in 259
Yes.
to change student outcomes that are happening.
Let's do it.
And I'm confident that we have the right team in place, the right people in place, the right focus, and the right dedication for it. And so I'm very confident in that. But my work's not done. And so I am running for re-election for the school board.
Good.
I'll be on the ballot in November.
Good.
And so
Yeah.
I would appreciate everybody's vote and support for that.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad that you're willing to pour in. It's a thankless job many times, and yet here you are. You're in the mix of it and in the thick of it. And USC 259 is going to be better because of your influence and the influence of your colleagues. Many of them I know, several of them I know personally, and everybody's lockstep on the same page, moving in a direction with great leadership from the superintendent and wonderful teachers in that district serving these beautiful families and these kids. So Diane Albert, El Presidente, USD 259, God bless you. God bless your work. Thank you.
Thanks.
Appreciate you.
Appreciate you.